Set!
Blitz is defined as a sudden, savage attack. It is indeed all this. The effect is sure. The premise is simple. It's a basic, primal confrontation, man to man. No excuses are offered, none accepted.
Welcome to the latest edition of Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com.
Looks like a radio station.
Now, here are your hosts, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers,
Pure athlete, yeah.
I transcend race, hombre.
Matt Butler,
I don't talk man. I back it up.
And we are chock full of that, man.
Damn right.
and Jeff Howe.
It's still real to me, damn it.
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
If you're gonna blitz, come strong, but don't come at all.
Coming strong with another edition of Longhorn Blitz with Horns 24/7. It is the off season, but I've got a lot I want to get to today, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. He is the master of the soundboard, the drop machine extraordinaire, the man who holds this thing together, the glue of Longhorn Blitz, Matt Butler. Matt, how are you, sir?
Doing quite well. Yourself?
Good. Did you enjoy all the severe weather going on in our neck of the woods over the weekend?
That stuff was insane. Like, the highest I've ever seen Barton Springs in my life. Like, it literally, Barton Creek crested at the second highest it's ever been, highest since 1929. But, like, it was like, you know, when you go into Barton Springs and you have that place where you can buy burgers next to it?
Yeah.
Think if the water was up to there and that was where your feet were, that's where the water was.
Nuts.
Yeah.
A man who had his weekend impacted by the water because he was down at Hornbash, had a Buck's backyard in Buda, down in my neck of the woods. Lifetime Longhorn 2002 UT All-American 2002 semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award. Fourth-round draft choice of the New York Giants in 2003. Spent his NFL career with the Giants, Lions, Bears, Bucks, Broncos, and a year with the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. When he was done with football, got himself back to Austin, Texas, into 40 acres, where he earned his degree. When he gets that T-ring back, I promise, folks, he's going to wear it proudly. Nevertheless, he is a card-carrying member, a black card member of DBU. Number 21 in your program, number 1 in your hearts, Mr. Rod Babers. And
Thanks for the intro, brother.
no problem, Rod. I don't want to belabor it too much, but the Horn, our wonderful partners at the Austin Radio Network and the Horn, had their second annual Horn Bash over the weekend at a Buck's backyard in Buda.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, I brought my wife out there and my young
thanks
daughter.
Thanks for coming, man. You brought the family out.
Yeah.
It's a family
That's
affair.
awesome.
Yeah.
I always say it's kind of like a family reunion, and you brought the family out, and that was really cool, man. It was good to see you guys.
Rod had not seen my daughter yet, so I wanted to make sure that happened.
Beautiful thing. Oh, man, she's gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But speaking of the weather, yeah, you guys lost an RV.
We lost an RV. We lost like 8 porta potties. Another RV got wrecked because
Onion Creek.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, the water rose really fast, and it just wasn't. This is the crazy part. They didn't have enough time to really move the RVs because the water was rising so fast, and then once it got muddy, it was just, you were stuck there, and they couldn't move them out. And, of course, stuff got washed down the river. But the barbecue teams, I think there were 40-something of them total. I want to say 35, 36 of them stayed.
I think it was 39. I think there were only
39?
two. Only
Okay,
two.
yeah.
Yeah, because Aaron Hogan uploaded that video of them sitting there in the middle of it.
They just basically risked their lives so that we could have some good brisket and good ribs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what happened because, I mean, they say the fire, like, marshal came down and was like, hey, man, we got, hey, guys.
And there's a 15-foot wall of water coming down Onion Creek in about 30 minutes.
Out. They were like, nah, we're good. We got it. So that's actually what made the event really a success, because if they would have left, then nobody would have gotten a chance to eat, and I don't think it would have been as successful as it was. Because of the weather, I deem it a success because the fans came out, you came out. It was a beautiful day the next day. The next day was one of the best days we've had in 2019 here in Austin. But it turns out the day before, it was like,
two
flood,
things I want to
Noah's
mention.
Ark out there.
Two things I want to mention on Horn
and
Bash.
RVs were the Ark.
Whenever I meet people, it's amazing, because I've been at 24/7 Sports and Horns 24/7 since the day the site launched. It's almost 10 years. And I get more feedback on, hey, love the Blitz. Get more feedback on the Blitz than anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys out there for listening, downloading, supporting the show.
Yeah.
We greatly appreciate it. And two, Matt, I was kind of hoping you'd be out there because Bucky and Aaron celebrated their 20-year anniversary of being on the air.
I didn't know they were like renewing vows, and then I saw them in Dumb and Dumber tuxes. Like I was like, what is going on here?
With Reverend Rod presiding over the ceremony.
I was told I was officiating the ceremony. It was not my idea. Trust me.
Yeah, no, it was Christina came in here that week before and was saying that they were having. I was like, I'll be there for the rock Rockets-Warriors game starts at 7:30, and she was like, it's a day thing, and it's going to be done. So I
Yeah.
was tied up till 7:30, so unfortunately couldn't make it out to watch the game with them. But if I would have known Bucky and Aaron were getting married again, that would have been pretty cool to check.
No, it was fun.
Because it was cool because Chad Hastings was their first producer. Trey was in that chair for a while. Matt, you sat in that producer's chair.
Yeah, that's where I started as an intern, was behind old Dedamore doing that. And then Bucky, in between me graduating college, before I got hired at that radio station, I was like Bucky's assistant for like a month or two. He just sent me around to places.
Assistant.
Like I was picking up.
You have to sign a non-disclosure
No.
agreement with that, 'cause-
It was the most unofficial
Sorry.
job ever. I was
Yeah.
driving around picking up lawnmowers for like basically all his prizes for the Mullet Open, and like was doing his Mullet Open stuff for him basically. And then started at the radio station, and that was when you got hired. Like literally within like that first year was whenever you started. You were just sitting down watching the sports buffet, and then started doing the show.
Man, that's crazy.
Well, so that's just a kind of a slice of what's going on here in our recording.
No, it's crazy.
Our
No, I
recording
agree with you,
area.
More
'cause we
people
do
know
record
you
at the home
from the.
studios.
Sorry about that to interrupt you, but
No,
more
good,
people know you from the Blitz. I wanted to throw this out there, but I didn't want to throw it out there before you guys made your points. I remember when Emmitt Smith, and it blew me away too. He said, "Man, I swear to God, more people come up to me and tell me they love me from Dancing with the Stars than they ever did to tell me, hey, they love me from being a running back with the Cowboys or with the Gators."
Yeah.
And it blew me. I was like, "Are you crazy?" But then it just let us know like we're in a bubble, a sports bubble. And he was like, no, man, people love me with Dancing with the Stars. They always come like, man, you were awesome on Dancing with the Stars. And to me, I think that's kind of with you. Like you like the web world is like a world of its own. And then there's like the radio world. They intercept, and they obviously there's a lot of crossover. But man, people love Jeff Howe on the radio.
Well,
I get more compliments when Jeff Howe's on the show when you come on doing football season Thursdays and Mondays. Than most of the things we do on the show. They love Jeff Howe on the radio. Man.
And I think a part of that's you being humanized, because like when you talk about Emmitt, that happening, it's like he was a football guy, just like just a writer, but then like you see that human element and the personality, and people connect with it, and that's sort of what the podcast idea or the conversational aspect of radio. You have that human element where you don't get it just as a cut and dry print read or a cut and dry football player running into a wall.
Well said.
I appreciate that.
Well said.
Speaking of human, I lost my mind the last probably week or so digging into research, and we'll get to some of that today, but this is research that's going to carry us pretty much through the summer and pretty much
called rabbit
forever.
holing. I've actually coined the term rabbit holing. You just start you go down a rabbit hole and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna do this I'm gonna do this rabbit hole right. I'm going deep.
But the first thing I want to get to this week is and the research will lead us into the second big thing I want to hit this week. But the first thing is news on the 40. They broke ground and should be probably within the next, as we sit here now, within the next week or so, in earnest start on the South End Zone project. Rod, it seems like, man, we've been talking about the South End Zone project since the North End Zone project was finished 11 years ago.
It's like the MoPac project. It goes
it
down
really is.
Anytime they put something in a project, it's like, no, literally, it's a it's like the
No, Texas Stadium, it's going to be that same way.
It's going to take a while.
No, you're spot on with that too. That university, that stadium's going to be always growing. The next time it's finally finished is 10 years later, and something else will need a revamping. And that's how MoPac's been since my parents literally first heard of MoPac in the 70s.
All you need to know is Mac Brown was selling to us that they were going to close the horseshoe of DKR when he was recruiting me in 1999, and they didn't do that even when I was on the 40 acres.
Nope.
So it goes to Tom Herman's point where he says like repainting. He said that basically the facilities, the arms race between facilities is like repainting the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time you get done repainting one part, it's time to start all over and get to the beginning where you started, 5-8 years ago. It's always a project. Which is what MoPac.
So
anyway,
there's a couple impressive things about this. Number one is it starts with Chris Del Conte, and he has raised $125 million of the money that's going to go into this facility. And we went through kind of the end of the DeLoss Dodds era, Rod, where everybody across the board, I think, in the athletic department was just kind of resting on their laurels. The whole We Are the Joneses deal, and Texas fell behind. And fell behind quickly with what TCU was doing and what Baylor was doing. And basically, you're not even top of the line in your own conference. You're probably middle of the pack, if not worse, in your own conference in terms of facilities. And then the Steve Patterson debacle where, just we don't need to rehash all
Stevie
that.
P.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Hey, I still take up for Stevie P because I said I think he was hired as a hatchet man.
Yeah, you knew he was going to get fired.
They all knew it from the beginning, man. None of it lines up. They knew it from the beginning. He came in to do the dirty work that nobody on the 40 acres wanted to do. So they hired him to basically be an a-hole.
Yeah, to
and
be the shield to
he's
take
a really
it all.
good a-hole.
And
That's
he'll
what
take all the
he's not a great sports mind. He's not a great athletic director. He's not. Go look at his track record. He's never ever been successful actually making decisions.
He's one of those
in sports.
Bobs from Office Space.
He's hired as he's a hired hand, a mercenary to come in and do the dirty work for Texas. And he did.
He didn't even do the dirty work right, though. Like,
But
they botched, Max exit. Well, he's coming back, but he's not. But now he is. But now he's fired.
Well,
and then the whole Rick Barnes thing.
I didn't say he was good at his job, but they hired him to do a job, which to be the hatchet.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you for clarifying.
He needed to do a lot of unpopular things, even though if the masses wanted, there were hard things to do, getting rid of legends or moving on from certain things.
A lot of the policies he put in place, they have not removed. They're still there.
Does that include
they haven't went back on a lot of things.
Does that include the blended 6% increase on
a lot of things he did? I know that for a fact. They hadn't removed him, but CDC is so. I mean, he's so brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in terms of public relations and media relations, that I mean, he saves the day for everybody. And Mike Perrin, give him props too. He did a great job after
stabilized
CDC.
it.
Yes,
and that was the thing. You hear about Crystal County raising most of the money. Yeah. Raising most of the money for this facility by, reaching out to the Moncrief family and the Myers family and all these families that have given money to Texas over the years.
Buildings.
Yeah, and getting the money but getting to interact with Chris Del Conte at that deal, getting to interact with Greg Fenves, and Tom Herman was available for a brief time because he had recruits he was hosting during the weekend. This is the first time in a long time, Rod, where I felt like specifically relating to the football program. Like, this thing on all levels is headed in the right direction. Like, this is on a championship trajectory, and I don't say that
for football.
Yeah, I don't say that lightly, because everybody has the same. Everybody has, and I know Tom Herman uses that word alignment. I know people don't like hearing it, but Chris Del Conte, Greg Fenves, and Tom Herman all have the same vision for what they want to do, and they're all, to use the old parlance, they're all steering the boat in the right direction.
Yep, I agree. I'm with you 100%. It almost reminds me of once you did get everything aligned with, Mac Brown, Bill Powers, and DeLoss Dodds, Chris Plonsky. I mean, and Tom Herman's the one, and I don't know if I'm sure he's not the one who said it. He got it from somebody else that, programs overall, the programs, administrations win championships. I mean, it's not just, and when you say program, you talk about the players on the field and the coaching staff, but then you go much deeper than that. We're talking about equipment, the equipment guy, and deeper than that, and even your AD and your the administration and all those people, the people that's in compliance and everybody's got to be thinking on the same page, because any disruption can cause almost this reverberating, cascading effect all throughout the administration. You know what I mean?
Especially at a place like this.
Especially at a place like Texas, and we've seen that. So, I agree. That's what Mac Brown knew. He said the BB's in a box, but it's the same thing. Right. Alignment is what alignment. Mac Brown would say, I got to get the BBs back in the box.
Yeah.
And the BBs in the box. That was his thing. So, I mean, it's still the same visual. They're politicians to a certain extent, so they got to sell it to us. Get a vision. Alignment is Tom Murray's like, alignment. I need alignment. And we say, okay, alignment means he's got to have everybody on the same page. You think of alignment, you think straight. You think, all right, so it's corresponding. Everything is right where it's supposed to be. And that's his way of saying, hey, everybody's on the same page. And Mac Brown's way of saying it was, we got the BBs in the box. And we all remember that, too. It's almost like a campaign slogan, right? Make America Great Again. You remember it when it's good and it works. It fits perfectly. It's like, hope. Oh, damn. Oh, yeah, right? Hope and change. Like, it. Like, okay, there it is. So I think for Tom Herman, he understands what it's all about. Mac explained it to him. He was like, hey, man, don't use my slogan, all right? But find your own.
Brand it.
You know what I mean? But brand it. Keep saying it. and then people will understand what you mean and what you want.
Based on what you just said, why do I feel like the next thing we're going to see somebody's going to like put Tom Herman's face on the Barack Obama poster where instead of hope it says alignment?
Yeah, right.
You know?
It is. It's like, we want alignment. You know what I mean? But he used that to justify, I want to keep the coaching staff where it is. You know what I mean? Like consistency, alignment, stability, all these things, they come to mind when you play like the word game with alignment.
Right.
And, you know, he's a Mensa guy, so he understands that. And Mac Brown was a brilliant, you know, political strategist, so he understood BBs in a box. We would all get it. Hell, and he was in Texas. He's like, guns, BBs in the box. People love the guns. It's like, BBs in the box.
It's quoting old Darryl Royal, too. Bring you back into legend, making you feel comfortable. I mean, that's why I'd like to see, like, you know, you said to have the alignment photo of Herman.
What was Charlie Strong's? Did Charlie Strong have one?
No. Football.
We can put the T back in Texas.
Put the T back in Texas. That was his. Yeah, no.
It'd be funny if you have
I didn't remember that. I
didn't either.
You know what I mean? Like, what was Hillary Clinton's slogan?
I don't remember.
Couldn't tell you.
You know what I mean? Like,
couldn't tell you.
You don't remember the losers.
No,
I mean, you remember what their slogan was. Like you were asked, you remember how, Barack Obama, Hope and Change. You don't remember the losers?
I don't remember
what
John
was Al
Kerry.
Gore's slogan? I don't remember it.
Bob Dole.
Global warming.
You know what I mean? Like that's part of it though. That's part of the message you're selling.
Well, because if you're successful, you're memorable.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know, and it'd be funny to see if there's like a photo of Mac right now putting BBs in the box for North Carolina. Like, I would like to listen to his press conferences and see if he said that to them.
We need
because
a
he needs to do
political
that
cartoonist.
Over there.
That's what somebody could like show Mac like putting the BBs back in the box. But
that'd be pretty good.
I think all of this goes back to, and I'll say it, I think goes back to the Texas Cold War. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All that goes back to them trying to win this state. That's why the facilities battle is an arms race, man. Like hell, A&M arguably has better facilities in Texas. Like that, you're like, so you're talking about that Texas Cold War. That's
the
something
Russians.
they can brag about. They're like 4 or 5 main components and factors to the Texas Cold War. Recruiting is number one, and then you know facilities is a part of that too. Hell yeah, you got to win games to have the most wins. But then you know draft is a big part of that. That's why Texas got to get back to getting guys drafted really high. I know it sounds like, well, what if they're winning games? That doesn't matter. Like, no, it does.
There's a correlation.
There's a correlation because the Aggies will brag about having more draft picks, and they will say yes, and it will affect recruiting because they were like, well, man, they recruit well, but then what happens to those guys when they get to Texas? All right, they underachieve, which is what a 5-star receiver from Austin actually said about Texas. I don't like when guys go to Texas because they underachieve. So you got to win that battle too. You can't. It is the Cold War. You can't allow them to win one thing because if they win one thing, that little bit of shred, you know what I mean? That is the one thread that could unravel the whole damn thing. So you got to have more wins than A&M. All right, and you got to have better facilities than A&M. And you got to have a better recruiting class than A&M, and you got to have more draft picks. You know what I mean? It sounds like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, no. Those are the things that Mac Brown did to win a national title. You want to go all the way back to it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you got to do in this state specifically. In this state, it's different than any other state.
And it reminds me of how we've been talking about a defense, and it's like, yeah, you can have a good defense, but if there's one glaring hole, you're only as good as your best bad matchup. And in this situation, it's like, okay, well, if you give them one piece of ammunition to use against you, then there's something to be used against you in the battle between it.
Go look
Especially
at
in the modern recruiting, you used to have the unwritten rules and no negative recruits. Like, that stuff's out the window.
Yeah.
If you give them one thing, it's going to be used against you, and then if you can brand it well on social media and make it, you can talk it almost into a reality, even if it's a perception is somehow now became that reality instead of actually being based on the facts. So you don't want to give them something to then mold the perception around it.
Yeah, no, because and it's a great point because I remember looking at the Twitter account of A&M after the draft, and they said they bragged about a lot of things. They bragged about having 7 draft picks, but I think it was the most they've had in history. They bragged about that being the second most in the SEC. All those things being understandable, and that makes sense. And they also bragged about having the most draft picks in the state of Texas. And what do you think that's a shot, man? That's what you do. You know what I mean? And overall, I'll tell you who's hovering over all of this Texas Cold War. On the back burner, there's always a nation on the outside like, all right, who's going to win this thing? Because I'm taking over Game of Thrones style is Oklahoma. Because Oklahoma needs this state.
Yeah.
They've
lost more ground than anybody.
Yeah, like they need this state too. That's why, that's their lifeblood as well. And Texas has to worry about, that perception war against Oklahoma and win that too. There's a lot at stake here, and I think that facilities upgrade, the south end zone, it's just, to me, it's just kind of a small layer. But if you dig a little deeper, you can see it, man. It's all there because this is unprecedented territory in a lot of respects for Texas. And for athletics in Texas, too, in terms of looking at A&M and that Texas Cold War, but also Oklahoma. They've had 2 Heisman Trophy-winning #1 overall draft picks.
From Texas.
From Texas.
And they still are losing ground somehow. They're coming here to get their quarterbacks.
And they're still losing ground, so they're panicking. They're like, no.
And let's not forget the other part of that Texas fans somehow neglect to forget when they talk about Oklahoma. Oklahoma's won more Big 12 titles in the last 4 years than you've won ever as a program.
And don't even need really a consistent quarterback to do it. They've done it with 7 different quarterbacks.
They won more than the rest
8
of
different quarterbacks.
Nate Hibble won them a Big 12 title.
No, they
Paul
still
Thompson
won
won
more
them
than
a
the
Big
rest
12
of the
title.
conference combined. It's insane.
Yeah, So I think there's a lot going on here, man. There's a lot that upgrade. I don't know if Tom Herman's in that office. But he's like, hey, man, we need it. I know you got a lot to worry about, but this football is what needs to be the top priority. Like, we got to upgrade these facilities right now because everybody else is doing it.
To tie all that in together, right, Chris Del Conte said something in that press conference Saturday that stuck with me, and he was talking about, the Moncrief complex itself was built for Darrell Royal, and the major overhaul it got was while John Mackovic was a coach, and Mac did some things to renovate it up until now where Tom Herman redid the weight room, and, we're going to see this massive renovation. But he said, we talk about, and I'm paraphrasing him here, he said, we talk about Texas wanting the best, deserving the best, but you look at the history of just this building, were we really committed to winning? Mm-hmm. And I think that dose of reality really hits home for a lot of Texas fans. And you say, when you look at what TCU put into their facilities and what Baylor did, and even what Iowa State's done, what Oklahoma State's done, what even Kansas on the football side has done. Yeah.
With less money.
Because I know Kansas went in and said, look, we're not going to have a stadium as nice as Oklahoma or Texas, but we can have facilities on par with what they do. And you look at where Texas stood in the conference, you really have to ask yourself, really in that era where it started to fall off, and it's more complex and more nuanced than this, but
yes, it is.
Had it not been for Colt McCoy and Will Muschamp, the downfall probably happens earlier than 2010.
Yeah.
But you start looking where everybody, like I said, was just kind of resting on their laurels. Were you really committed to winning, or just as long as you were finishing #1 in the bank every year, was that just kind of good enough?
Remember with Mac Brown, though, and this is like you were very astute in your point that it's so nuanced. So it's not just one thing you can point out. It's almost like a geopolitical discussion where Mac Brown was against the arms race. Mm-hmm. He said it for years, and we didn't really pay attention to him, but he said, I don't want this to become a thing where, only the haves they go all in and they, can boost their support staff and go all in their facilities. Then the have-nots are left out in the cold and they got no shot at all. He didn't want to widen that gap. I think he was fighting a losing fight. I think he was fighting, it was futile. Mm-hmm. It didn't really matter. I was like, Mac, this is the way it's going. I think Mac was trying to help out the have-nots a little bit more. But I remember him several times stating that he wasn't about that. And he was actually on board for snitching on fellow coaches who were cheating to try to, to try to upgrade and try to skirt the rules and try to find some way around the NCAA rules in recruiting and stuff like that. So Mac, I don't know. I think he had a just cause, but you couldn't fight that. But that hurt Texas is my point.
Because
his stands hurt Texas because he didn't want Texas to try to. Texas should have been ahead of Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and Ohio State in building support staff. Hell, everybody wants to live in Austin. You're talking about the arguably the most popular city in the country. You're talking about where I think it's the fastest growing city in the country.
Every year since 99
every year, everybody wants to live here because they got a tech boom, they got a movie boom, they got a music culture, they got a food culture, everything. And Mac, he would use that in recruiting, but wouldn't use that in recruiting of student athletes, but wouldn't use that in recruiting of coaches and support staff. And it's like, Mac, they all want to come to Texas, man. And he fought against that almost subconsciously.
And while he was fighting against it, do you know what happened?
Everybody
the
else.
have-nots said screw it, and they became the haves.
Yeah.
Well, and then,
Oklahoma State, Boone Pickens said, you know what, screw it. We'll just dump all kinds of money into our facilities. Oklahoma State wins a Big 12 title. Baylor has as many Big 12 titles in the last 20 years as Texas does.
well, hell, if you look at Big 12
The
titles,
Johnsons
you
caught
have
up with the Joneses.
You have 12 with Oklahoma. The rest of the Big 12 conference has 8. Like, that's what's left. If you want to count in Nebraska, Colorado, and A&M, it's 12 to 12.
But to Rod's point,
Oklahoma has 12
Yeah.
Big 12 titles?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. They have
That's
more
why-
than the rest
Why
of
did I
the
think it
conference
was-
combined.
I don't think it was 12?
Dude,
No, it can't be that many.
well, I mean, here's the list. 2000, 2002, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18.
It's not 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Either way, it's more than the entire conference. This adding
No,
thing
you're
may
right.
be
Yeah,
off.
it's more
Like,
than the entire
it's more than every other school
No,
in the
you're right.
conference.
You're right.
But-
No, sorry. Your
No.
math is right. You're better math.
But a couple-
my mind is blown is why I
Right.
can't believe it. That's
That's
I
what,
apologize.
Rod, that's why whenever.
That's why.
And
it's
I'm not.
It's not you. Yeah, man,
No,
that's
I'm not.
crazy.
I'm not going to discount your Texas Cold War argument, but this is my point to Texas fans. While you're
Wow.
concerned about bickering with the Aggies, the Sooners are dominating this conference.
Oh, I understand that. No, I understand that. I'm just saying that I'm telling you, you got multiple threats. You're America.
Yeah.
You have multiple threats coming at you.
Yeah.
Like
So
they-
don't
that's
be
what I'm saying.
concerned with the
Yeah,
one in
yeah,
College
I agree with
Station
you.
because
I
the
agree
one
with
in
you.
Norman is probably more important to your immediate success.
But like America, you must be able to defend yourself on multiple fronts.
right.
You're supposed to be that big. You're supposed to be that influential, that impactful as a brand. You got to defend the northern front against Oklahoma, and you got to defend your your eastern front with A&M and
SEC.
because A&M because A&M has now opened the door to the SEC.
'Cause they're like,
It's-
yeah, well, we're Texas. We don't care if it
yeah,
goes
they're
to
like
the
Al
SEC.
Qaeda. They've opened you up to a whole lot of other stuff. You know what I mean? They're not even a state. You don't know what the hell's going on there. You know what I mean? Like they just opened you up to a whole
Well,
lot
if we aren't
of
going to
kind
get
of
them, we're going
random-
to take them away from Texas.
I apologize. I should not have.
Aggies. Quote
That was
Rod
not-
Babers. Bottom
that
line,
was-
Rod
what's a-
Babers.
what's a
equals
dark
thousand
place
Get
in
percent.
my,
the-
get my point
Yeah.
in my analogy. Obviously, I'm going
They're
very too far.
commies.
I'm going way too far, but no, there. But you get my point. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like you got to be able to defend both of them, and both of them are coming at you. Like they're both of their number one objectives is you.
Yeah.
And like you got to figure out now. I got to divide my resources to be able to defend myself against both because Texas A&M is here in the state. They are within your boundary. They are already here within your borders. There's nothing you can do about it. So how do you defend against that? That's that CIA stuff. That's that covert, clandestine stuff you got to do. All right, that's secret agent stuff going on within your population to police your own because they're within your own. They're Aggies. All right, and then there's Oklahoma, who's clearly on the outside.
Yeah,
all right?
they're
They're on the
12
outside.
and here's
you know
what-
what they are, but they also need Texas
Here's what's different about
to
Tom
feed
Herman.
themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Here's what's different about Tom Herman and a lot of guys on this staff too. Tom Herman, a lot of those guys that he's got in his program right now on his coaching staff, a lot of those guys were in the foxhole with Urban Meyer when Ohio State won that national title in 2014. So they've known what it's been like to see the cutthroat guy operating,
Yeah.
trying to, because Ohio State's another one of those programs. You got to worry about Michigan, and you got to recruit against Notre Dame, and you got to
Yeah.
worry about Penn State,
Yeah.
and you got to take care of
I agree with
everything at home and abroad.
And
And
quickly
they've
turning
well,
around a
hold
big
on,
power.
just a minute.
I
Hold
agree
on.
with that. Yeah,
And-
and a further recruiting base.
And they've seen what it takes to, from a cutthroat standpoint. You've got to be able to handle it from all fronts on recruiting, facilities, everything. And when push comes to shove, you've got to be able to say, do we have the staff power, the personnel on the field, and the ability scheme-wise to go head-to-head and beat Nick Saban in a national semifinal when it counts
yeah,
with a national title on the
a lot to
line.
think about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Tom Herman, so Tom Herman's been with Mac Brown to see how it works at Texas and how it was built at Texas. He's been with Urban Meyer to see, okay, this is college football today in the late 2010s going into the 2020s, what it takes to win in college football. So I think Tom Herman's just looking at it and saying, no, this is what Texas has needed for a long time that hasn't been in place. Yeah. These are the type of guys we're going to go recruit. This is the type of personnel we need. This is the type of support staff we need. These are the kind of guys I want to assemble on my coaching staff. These are the kind of facilities we need. And it goes beyond, right? It goes beyond just Oklahoma and A&M. If you want to compete with Clemson, with Alabama, with Ohio State, this is the type of stuff you need. And credit to Chris Del Conte and Greg Fenves, they've put the green light on everything Tom Herman's asked for so far.
No, I totally agree. But you got to beat the most immediate threat first.
I get it.
Oklahoma is your most immediate threat within your conference, and A&M is your most immediate threat within your state. So, I mean, you got to win the recruiting battle in the state,
Right?
and then you got to win your conference. You know what I mean? And the thing is, to keep the military analogies going, what it takes to win one battle against Oklahoma, to go back to your point, is not what it's going to take to win the battle against Clemson and Ohio State or Bama.
Yeah.
So you got to have your resources. You got to spend tons of money on defense, right? And national, you got to spend tons of money on your military to make sure that you can defend yourself on multiple fronts, and you can win the battle against Oklahoma, which is going to be a different battle altogether than the battle you're going to have against a Clemson or an Ohio State or a Bama. Like, it's going to be totally different. It's like Game of Thrones, right? The Battle of Winterfell, the battle against the dead, is going to be a totally different battle than the battle you're going to have against Cersei. Sorry if y'all don't know about that. But people will get
Spoiler
that
alert.
No, that's good interjection of pop culture.
Different battles.
Radio
it's gonna
101.
take different tactics, different everything, all right? Different personnel, whatever. So I think, and you pointed out several times, to win the Big 12 is great, but that strategy, whatever it took to win the Big 12, that's not the same strategy you're going to have to be able to use in personnel even to beat Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, and those other teams.
One good thing about it now, though, is the way the system's changed in favors of the haves, the way Texas is. Before, you had to either, get lucky pre-bowl alliance and have everything go in, or have just two teams. But now, if you're Texas or Oklahoma, and you've seen, Oklahoma is living up to their standard at this point, well, that means that if Texas is there, the winner's going to end up getting an immediate shot as one of those four in. You got that path to get in that it doesn't now. Once you get in, then it becomes that battle that you're speaking about. That then you have to actually be able to beat those.
Most immediate
but
battle.
you used to not have an avenue directly to that the way that you do now. In Texas, just being the school, one of the blue bloods, it's like you're an area of privilege, and you're able to go. If you take care of your business, you have the opportunity every year to be there.
To Jeff's point, though, you got to be obsessed with Oklahoma too, and it now should match any obsession to win the state. Which
it's like
every time Texas has been the best team in the state of Texas, go back and look. They're usually in the national championship discussion. This year, they were the best team in the state of Texas, and they went to the Sugar Bowl. All right, like, it's usually really good things to be the good. I remember Mac Brown's why he was like, we got to win the state title. That's got to be big, because that's how big football is in the state. But to Jeff's point,
it means you beat OU.
You got to beat Oklahoma twice now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was just once, and it was like, woo.
But if you beat them first, you might get lucky.
And now you got to do it twice.
Normally, yep.
You know what I mean? So to get to the big dance, that now I think ups the obsession level with Oklahoma. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, we definitely got to figure this out, because we can't even if you lose to them in the in the Red River Showdown, and then you win
really
the Big 12 title. That's not good enough, because then you're probably not going to make it to the college football playoff, and that'll be really tough that way. You probably got to beat them twice to really, solidify your
chance
way
you gotta beat
to play for the big. Yeah, either way you got to beat them. I think you got to beat them twice, though. I think that's the new rule.
Well, for sure, that'll get you in for sure.
That's why, yeah, and you got to be able to prepare for that, to beat them twice.
Yeah,
that's hard to do.
That's why I think any Oklahoma fan who looks at Texas objectively, and I understand there's Oklahoma homers in the media and abroad that aren't going to look at Texas objectively. I think any Oklahoma fan looking at this objectively from a realistic standpoint should be saying about Texas, are you guys ready to sit at the head of the table now? Because for Oklahoma, if Texas is that program, it legitimizes this conference. It legitimizes your conference titles. Yep. Right, let's face it, there's some years later where Oklahoma's won a conference where you really didn't have – there was no elite number 2 team where they've had to go beat.
I agree with you, but that's the beauty of Oklahoma. If there's nobody that's going to take the Iron Throne,
we got it.
We'll take it,
and that's what Texas wants to be. Texas thinks they're that, but we haven't been that.
Exactly. To Matt's point, that's what Texas should be doing. That when there's nobody to take the Iron Throne, it should automatically go to Texas. It doesn't.
And it was when Stoops came. I mean, you look, the first 4 championships in the Big 12 were Texas, Nebraska, A&M, Nebraska. Since 2000, 12 of the 19 have been Oklahoma.
One of those was a coach championship with K-State. I'll throw that in there.
Yeah.
But
that is,
to Matt's point,
that's
still
2012.
Still stands.
Yeah.
But as we talk about the South End Zone project breaking ground, which it'll be completed by the time the 2021 season starts, right? Think back in your head when you ever thought, the 2021 season would be on the horizon. in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Which actually is crazy. It sounds the 2021 season. It'll be the 20th anniversary year of your 2001 season, where probably should have been a Big 12 championship season.
2001 and 2 should have been Big 12 titles. We were good enough.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And but anyway, I started thinking about 2001 and all those bad memories came.
I know. Sorry, that's why I said I didn't want to bog down the
It's
show.
like your
I'm
bad
not even
memories.
going
Think
there,
about
no.
Rod.
But as
Yeah, I was like,
Texas
nope, not even going there.
as Texas starts to build this facility, and you look at the 2019 season, what's right ahead of us, and there will be the construction in the background when LSU comes in and whatever. But you start looking at this, and the Big 12 is getting back to that point where I think you look at the Big 12, Rod, as we sit here several months out, and you can realistically say, I think it's Texas and Oklahoma, and then you can just kind of pick your number 3, 4, 5, and so on.
I agree with
I'm
that.
not sure that it really matters.
That's
I
how
don't
it
think it
was
matters
like
either.
pre-08.
Yeah. I think that's what the Big 12 wants to.
That's what the Big 12 needs.
Yeah, exactly. Wants and needs.
Like I said, Oklahoma's hoping Texas is ready to sit at the head of the table because it'll legitimize this conference, and there will be no question at that point that the Big 12 champion in the current playoff format deserves a shot in the CFP.
So we're like
If
Michigan.
that number 2 contender is a legitimate
Yeah,
contender.
let the two blue bloods basically just keep the conference legitimized.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is what that would happen. I agree with you. The reason it's delegitimized is because of Texas. It's our fault.
Right, and it's the
It ain't
same way
Oklahoma's fault. Oklahoma's they've been
They've held up their end
keeping
of
up
the deal.
their end of the bargain. The reason the Big 12 has lost respect because of Texas. I know that they got bad leadership and all that, and they only got
everybody
10
else's
teams,
came up.
But exactly, Texas is the one. If Texas was up at this point where Oklahoma is, man, people would love the Big 12. Hell, the NFL loves the Big 12.
Not only are we to blame for that, but
We
then
are.
we're also to blame for legitimizing these other ones, because at that
Yeah, we
point
did.
that it naturally goes both ways whenever that
Yeah.
occurs.
That's true.
To your point, go back to 2014. I guarantee you, and with all due respect to that Ohio State team I just bragged on a few minutes ago, if the debate is between Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Texas instead of Ohio State, TCU, and Baylor,
No question the Big 12
I would bet
gets
dollars
denied.
to donuts that a Big 12 team is getting in there.
No, I totally agree. Great point. Yeah, it's not even a debate. Actually,
'Cause
we don't even have the debate. It's done.
It's real easy to leave out TCU and Baylor. Let's be honest. Sorry, TCU and Baylor fans who were listening to this. It's
They're
real
not
easy
blue
to leave you
bloods.
out of that was proven. It's easy to leave you out of the
They're not
discussion.
blue bloods. Yeah,
But if it's Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Texas,
the Big 12 gets the nod.
there's a healthy debate to be had.
Yeah, it'd be
I don't
funny
even
to
know
see
the
how
other
that
debate. I
would.
think the Big 12, one of those Big 12 teams would get it because the debate would come down to, well, the Big 12 obviously has more of an argument because they're more competitive. They got two teams that they're competing for the spot.
And I agree fully with you, but think about just if you had, say, 5 years later, the culture of the Big 12 now with the way that football is going, maybe a little bit more respect than at the time when it was still just two gimmicky offenses doing that. And it was,
That's also a really good point.
No.
Now, yeah, you know what? The Baker Mayfields and the
looked like
Patrick
there's
Mahomes,
some legitimacy coming from
performing
it.
at
They
the
wouldn't be
NFL
looked
level.
the same way, but they
Yeah.
still probably be left out because
No,
of Baylor and
but
TCU.
I agree with you.
Yep.
I think that back then they were still, I don't even know
Getting a
why.
little bit more
considered
of a-
gimmicky.
yep.
Yeah, I'm with that.
So I want to table that discussion. We can dig into that the rest of the summer. But Matt, what we got? Probably about a half hour or so
That'll
left
work.
thereabouts. Rod, I want to dig into this because I like I told you guys, I spent about the last week losing my damn mind doing research, and I had a bout over the weekend with some food poisoning, so I got behind a little bit.
Oh, no.
But last night
Sounds
I stayed up until probably 3:30 in the morning and got my research finished, got it all mapped out. And basically what I did was I took the formula Matt started that he and I just kind of riffed off of a few years ago, talking about bust rates and who falls into the bust category, what players belong where. So, Rod, here's where I decided, man, this will be a really cool idea. And then about 10 minutes into the research, I wanted to put a fork through my eyeball.
You're like, this is going to take me hours and days.
This took me days. I decided, you know what? If I'm going to do this study right and track this the right way, I'm going to start with the beginning of the Mac Brown era and track it from 98 on.
Pre-internet.
Pre-internet recruiting.
I don't even know how you do that, man.
Man,
Magazines.
You go to the library.
thank my wife for not making me throw them out. Thank my dad for building up my collection. But those Dave Campbell's Texas football sitting on the shelf in my office paid off
Man,
big time
there you
being
go.
able to go back.
Boom. Beautiful thing.
So I started tracking all this stuff, and I'm glad I wanted to do it at a time because we had some recent retirements from some Longhorn legends who decided officially to hang it up.
Derek Johnson.
Derek Johnson and Jamal Charles. I think we've
finally
known,
gets that record.
We've known for a while. And Brian Robinson. Those guys have both been out of football for a while. I think we knew it was done, but all three of those guys within the last 2 weeks have made it official that they're retired. All of them signed one-day contracts with their respective franchises. And I know Jamal Charles had a little cup of coffee with the Broncos. He got a couple games with the Jaguars. Derek Johnson went to the Raiders for a little bit, but he's the Chiefs' all-time leading tackler. Jamal Charles is the Chiefs' all-time leading rusher. Brian Robinson played 11 years with the Vikings.
Some crazy
as a franchise favorite in Minnesota. So I decided I wanted to take a look, Rod, and see really what had me delving into the research was, honestly, what is the best recruiting class from the Mac Brown era on, when you can really track recruiting classes. And I know there's a lot of old-timers that follow Texas that will say the Wooster bunch, that Steve Wooster class that contributed to those national titles in the Darrell Royal era, that class was the best class ever.
Yeah, but that's pre-modern era.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's pre-scholarship limits, yeah.
You've got, the 97 class is one of those classes that stands up. That's a Quentin Jammer, Leonard Davis.
Oh, yeah, that was a good class.
Major Applewhite class. But I wanted to track it from 98 on to see what is the best recruiting class ever. And, Rod, the class Jamal Charles was a part of, pound for pound, I think it's probably the best class Mac Brown ever signed.
Is that the 05?
On the percentage.
That's the 2005 class.
The 05 class, yeah.
And let me just lay out the percentages because I tweaked it a little bit. I tweaked the formula a little bit. So we've still got 4 categories that we put guys into. Put them in the NFL caliber guys, which are guys, draft picks. You made an active roster as an undrafted free agent. You hung around at least a year on a practice squad. You were officially listed on a franchise's ledger for a season as a practice squad member. Or you got multiple chances over multiple years to make an NFL roster. Like Michael Huey.
You made a living at playing in the NFL.
Like Michael Huey is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, like an NFL caliber player that you wouldn't think is an NFL caliber player. You realize over a 6-year period, Michael Huey got a crack with 4 different NFL teams?
Yeah.
That, to me, is an NFL caliber player. When an
NFL
franchise wants to keep bringing you back.
Multiple teams are like, you know what, this guy's got something. He's got something. Yeah.
And, Rod, from your stories, that's hard to do over that long of a period to keep getting that phone call, hey, why don't you come to camp?
Yeah.
He's staying in that shape.
I agree. That means they like what they saw on film, and it means they like what they saw in terms of your measurables.
And it means, like, just from the simplest of terms, you made your living playing professional football for multiple years.
And Michael Huey, I think, had 4, 5, 6 years of really, really high-level Arena League experience. And, Rod, you tried your hand in the Arena League. That's not an easy transition either.
I don't think any type of football I played was easy. Even CFL wasn't easy to me, and arena football was actually harder than the CFL.
New
CFL
rules.
to me was easier than the Arena Football League. I'll say that.
Because of the condensed field and just
it just was
just
a strange world to be in. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you put it, if going from the NFL to the CFL is going like from Hollywood to doing porn, what is going from the CFL to the Arena League?
It's basically like being a sex worker.
Yeah.
You're a prostitute at that point. You just
Wow.
you're not working the street. You probably got maybe you're online on some backspace page. I don't know, whatever the hell it is.
You're like on Craigslist.
Yeah, you're a Craigslist hooker or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, however, whatever.
all due respect to the Arena League people.
I know. All due respect to the people, but I don't know what the XFL is. That's a different thing. Now we got to figure out what the XFL is.
Yeah.
Right?
We do have to figure that out.
Yeah.
But there's
XFL
another.
is better than Arena Football League.
Yeah.
So it's better than being a hooker. I would say XFL,
Stripper.
you're a stripper. Yeah. XFL, you're stripping. You just
because
you're not. You could if you want to do some dirty stuff behind the scenes. You could, but
have you seen? Did you see their TV deal?
Yeah.
Like that might be a step up from the CFL.
That's awesome.
They've got a TV deal with like ESPN, ABC,
maybe you're
and Fox.
right. Okay, so well, you know what? I would say a stripper.
Either way,
a stripper to me is better than being a porn star. I don't want you because you can at least you can recover from being a stripper. I can, you know what I mean. But a porn star, I can't make you my wife if you were a porn star.
I can
make you my wife if you were a stripper. Like you can explain that away. I'd be like, she was
a
stripper,
bad
it's all
6
good.
months.
Me and you can still have my babies, girl. I love you. You're great. If you were a porn star, it's gonna be really tough for me to actually make you the mother of my children.
You can't unsee that.
You can, exactly. I can't see that. Stripping, it's fine. Some dude grabbed your butt. Okay, it's all good. Grab your boob. It's no big deal. But I saw some stuff on porn. I can't unsee. You cannot be the mother of my children. Sorry, okay. I'm done. Moving on.
There was another category that I cooked up for this research. It's called the DNC category, the do not count. Basically, when I do these percentages now in a signing class, I'm not counting guys that either didn't qualify or within their first 2 years were medically disqualified for one reason or another.
So that's not even considered your bus.
Right.
Those are
he just made that off to the side.
See, okay.
So it doesn't
that
affect your
changes
numbers.
the bus rate.
That's why he had to
completely.
redo it all.
Okay, good point.
So the 2005 class, you had 15 signees. Of those 15 signees, 46.7% of them were NFL caliber players.
7 of them.
Wow. How many? 47.
46.7%. Let me go to my 2005 list.
That is crazy.
Lamar Houston.
No.
McCoy.
2005 class. This is Colt McCoy, Roy Miller, Roderick Muckleroy, Henry Melton, Jamal Charles, Jermichael Finley, Quan Cosby.
So 46%?
Seven of the 15
15
signees, damn near half the class, played in the NFL. Wow. Not just on a roster, played in the NFL. Starting,
so you didn't break it down to drafted and undrafted.
I did that, but that not for the generalization. I've got if you want to break it down,
okay.
of those 7, 6 of them were draft picks.
Which
You're
is
pretty damn
46
awesome.
of them were draft
amazing.
picks. 3 of those draft picks in the first 3 rounds. Nobody drafted after the 4th round. All within the first 4 rounds. Your starting caliber players, which we used to call that a significant contributor. Starting caliber player. You were a multiple year starter. Any Texas fan that's followed the program over the last 20 years should know who you are. Chris Hall, Aaron Lewis, Charlie Tanner. Major contributors.
So 3 out of 15?
3. So basically 10 out of 15.
20%.
10 out of 15 guys were in that signing class were high level contributors.
Wow.
The third category is positive impact players. You made some form of a positive impact on the program. Maybe you weren't a complete bust, but they got something out of the scholarship from you. Those 2 guys in that class,
Some starts on the field.
Trevor Gerland and Ishi Adewegu, were positive impact players. You contributed in some way, shape, or form. You lettered multiple years, blah, blah, blah.
Special teamer or something.
Bust. I had to redefine the bust category, right? And I told Matt this, and Matt put his stamp of approval on it, so we'll go with this for the bust rate. 2 years or less in the program, if you're out in that time frame, you automatically go on the bust list. There's some guys who go on the bust list who maybe they made it to 2 years, but in the middle of year 3, they went out of the program. Kennedy Estelle was one of those guys. Buck Burnett was one of those guys.
Yeah.
Just thinking about guys over the years. So it's basically 2 years or less in the program, you transferred out, got kicked out, whatever, you're on the bust list. Or if you look at the totality of it, you basically got nothing out of the scholarship. You didn't letter, you hardly played in games. Basically, it was pretty much a waste of a scholarship. You went on the bust list. This class produced 3 busts: Jarrell Wilkerson, Christopher Brown, Michael Houston.
Okay. Yeah.
And when you start looking at this,
So this is a kinder, more acute diagnosis.
But that shows you if you have a bust rate over 30% with how I'm doing it now,
then you
had a
really
major problem.
Yeah, he basically filtered out because before it was just us looking as like, oh, we had expectations for this 5-star guy and he didn't live up to it.
This was me
is
and
more
Matt just
cut and
kind of
dry.
spitballing stuff before. This is actually me trying to do research and really
Making it
kind of
quite
dive
scientific.
into it. And actually, you can make that bust percentage for 2005 higher because if somebody was looking at this and wanted to put Trevor Gerland on the bust list, I wouldn't necessarily dispute that.
Yeah.
But you start looking at that, Rod.
It's a kinder.
So, like I said,
evaluation.
46.7% of your signees went on to be NFL players. That's the highest percentage of any recruiting class from 98 on. Then you start looking at the win record. The most wins of any recruiting class from 98 on in a 5-year period. They had a 58-8 record. 4-1 in bowl games, 2-1 in BCS games, 5 top 25 finishes, 4 top 10 finishes, 3 top 5 finishes. This class contributed to 2 conference championships, a national championship in 2005, a Fiesta Bowl appearance in 2008, and that was a 1-loss season where probably should have played for the Big 12 championship and would have won it. And then contributed to the BCS championship game appearance in 2009.
So is this the question? Is it better than 2002?
I think it is pound for pound the best class in the MAC Brown, the best class in the
So
from
you're saying
98
it's better
on.
than 2002?
Pound for pound, yes, I think so.
Not the volume though. It's sort of like what we talked about, yards per carry.
Give me the 02 numbers. Give me the 02 numbers. Is it not? Is it sports debates are about? I want to know. Give me the 02
I'll
numbers.
give you the 02 numbers. Okay.
Give me the 02 numbers.
So the 02.
These are the 2 classes that were basically it comes down to.
So the 05 class had 15 signees. All 15 guys qualified for my research.
Okay.
The 02 class had 27 signees, 25 qualified. I threw out Aaron Ross because he did sign with that class but did not qualify.
Yeah, Aaron Ross signed with like 4 classes.
Aaron Ross contributed. You can put him on 3 different classes.
Literally 2000, 2001, 2002.
I put him on 03 because that was when he as a true freshman, made his debut. And I threw out Marquise Johnson, who had a car wreck and grades and didn't qualify. So 25 qualifying signees. Okay. You had, and let me go to my research here. I got to flip around. You had 8 NFL caliber players from this class. The 2002 class produced 6 total draft picks. Vince Young was a first-round pick, Justin Blaylock in the 2nd, David Thomas in the 3rd, Brian Robinson in the 4th, Casey Studdard in the 6th, Rod Wright in the 7th, and then Selvin Young and Lyle Senline caught on in the league as undrafted free agents. So that, Rod, is a 32% NFL hit rate. Starting caliber players, Aaron Harris, Larry Dibbles, Neil Tweedy. Positive impact players, Matt Milton, Garnett Smith, Tully Jensen, Brett Valdez, Marcus Myers, Brian Pickrell, Albert Hardy. Busts, there were.
How many is that for your
positive impact?
Positive impact.
7, starting calibers 3.
Okay. All right.
And then busts 7, you had Marco Martin, Adorian McCullough, Robert Timmons, Michael Williams, Chase Pittman, Dustin Mitch.
But higher bust rate than I thought.
Yep.
You got 7 busts on there?
Mm-hmm.
Higher bust rate than I thought.
Yeah. So there
Top
are the
end
numbers.
is very
Let me
good.
give you the rest of the numbers for 2002. So 32% NFL hit rate, 12% starting caliber players, 28% guys made a positive impact in some way, shape, or form, 28% bust rate, 5-year record, 54-9, bowl games 4-1, 2-0 in BCS games, 5 top 25 finishes, 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, contributed to the 04 Rose Bowl and the 05 National Championship season, 1 conference championship, and 2 division titles.
Yeah, if you look at that class, almost reminds me of exactly what you see in the parabolic curve, where you have both ends of the spectrum. You have the very good top end, but also the busts, and it's a volume-filled class compared to the other one, where it just seemed that you had a small amount, you could only offer a certain amount, and you hit on them, which is exactly what you needed then too.
So, Rod, what this list
I
is.
agree with you. It is a better class, but it's a good debate.
But when 2002, you're still looking at one guy.
Right answer.
Well, you got Vince Young.
Yes, exactly.
So you could have both ones.
This is my thing, though, and I'll always say this.
Boom.
Colt McCoy is right up there with Vince, in my opinion.
Yep.
He just didn't win the national title.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because Vince didn't win the Heisman. If he'd have won the Heisman,
Well,
it'd be different.
he got
That's
a
why we
ring,
always say
but
that
he
Sam can catch both of them. Like, the reason that Sam can catch both is because, honestly, the Vince to Colt drop off, like the distance between Vince and Colt and Coltness, it ain't that far if you talk to most Longhorn fans, because if they watch them, they're like, we all agree Colt was underappreciated. And if Sam Sam can win a Heisman, basically, and we all agree he's only going to win a Heisman if Texas plays in like a national title game.
Yep.
Yeah.
If he wins a Heisman, hell, he's probably gonna
be as decorated.
He's
as
gonna be
any.
like KD and be on the express lane past LeBron and be on the express lane past VY and Colt.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy, but it could happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, Rod, there
Colt
is
technically got the ring with 05.
Dude, Colt does technically have it, but Yeah,
It's like Garrett
BY
Gilbert's
won.
ring
No,
with
no,
the Patriots.
BY won it against arguably one of the greatest
yeah.
teams in the history of college football. The way
Just
he won
like Tom
it,
Brady won the one, but Garrett Gilbert has a ring.
Yeah, so VY gets that prop. I'm just saying, Colt, man, I love me some Colt. That's all.
In my research, though, Rod, there is a new contender, and I think a worthy contender. Let me see. Is there one or two contenders?
Oh,
There
no
are two.
way.
There are two worthy contenders that are in the conversation for the best recruiting class from '98 on.
And
No
one's
way.
Okay,
on
let me give you the
campus.
numbers. Go give you the numbers. Okay, it's 2003. Okay, 18 signees and one enrollee. So you count. This is the class Aaron Ross counts towards.
And this is the type of class that's more of a filled out one, but maybe not the top end like we were just speaking.
Well, let me run this down, Matt. See if we rephrase on top end.
Yeah.
7 NFL caliber players. Aaron Ross, first-round pick. Michael Griffin, first-round pick. Tim Crowder, second-round pick. Lima Swede, second-round pick. Tony Hills, fourth-round pick. Terrell Brown, fifth-round pick. Fifth-round pick.
Do you not like Terrell Brown? Why are you calling him that?
Sorry, Terrell. Slip of the tongue. Fifth-round
T-Boogie.
pick. I want you to mark that, Matt, so you can play that. You can play that back whenever I give you crap
That's
for
so
your
good.
Caleb
That was
Blewett
really
at Simon
funny.
Ridgeway.
That was good.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Foster is an undrafted free agent. So 7
guys.
NFL caliber players out of 19. Your starting caliber players, you had 4: Robert Killebrew, Scott Derry, Billy Pittman, Dallas Griffin.
Scott Derry.
Let me see if I got this number right. I think that's 3 positive impact players.
Yeah.
Eric Jackson, Thomas Marshall, Tyrell Gatewood.
I remember those guys.
And your busts, you had 5: Steve Richardson, one of my favorites who never made it, Eric Hardiman, Kyle Thornton, Stephen Hogan, Eric Foreman, who Eric Foreman famously started the 04 camp as a first-team linebacker
Yep.
and wanted to switch to quarterback. And Mac told him, you do realize, son, you're going from being the starter at one position to the fourth-string guy at another. And he said, yes, coach, I understand that.
That was when, like, the disappearing defensive ends. I remember being so excited for, like, a guy like Garnett Smith or a guy for, like, Eric Foreman that they were going to
Oh,
be the
Michael
guy.
Williams, Matt, in
There
the
you go.
2002 class. Michael
100%.
Williams was that guy. Michael Williams had NFL talent as a defensive end. No question. No question he did.
Yeah, those some guys who disappeared
Yeah.
from recruiting classes. I
So,
remember.
Rod, let me run down, now that you've got the names, let me run down the numbers for 2003. Your NFL hit rate, 36.8%. Your starting caliber player rate, 21.1%. Positive impact, 15.8%. 26.3% on the bust rate. 5-year record, 54-10. Bowl games, 4-1, 2-0 in BCS games. As the 2002 class, 5 top 25 finishes, 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, 1 conference title, the 04 Rose Bowl, and the 05 national title. Now let me go to 2004, which is the other contender. And this was a sneaky good class once I did the numbers. 2004, you had 19 signees, all of them qualified. And Matt, in the research, I'm glad I did it because I missed an NFL caliber player in this class.
Oh, yeah?
Brian Arakpo, first-round pick. Jordan Shipley. Now, Rob, we talk about Vince Young, talk about Colt McCoy. You got a recruiting class with Jordan Shipley, the greatest receiver in school history. That's something, not something to sneeze at. So Brian Arakpo, first-round pick. Jordan Shipley, third-round pick. Frank Ocam in the 5th. Chris Obanaya in the 7th. Nate Jones as an undrafted free agent. And Derek Loki spent 2 years with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, yeah.
Derek Loki was an NFL caliber player.
Good D tackle.
So
He played
Rob,
fullback sometimes. He was the lead blocker.
yeah. So your starting caliber players, you had 6 of them. Cedric Dockery, Rashad Bobineau. Here's the catch with 2004.
Oh, Bobineau.
I put Ramonce Taylor in the starting caliber player category because you can make the argument Texas probably doesn't win a national championship without him on the roster.
I'd say he's an
No
NFL
Longhorn
guy. It just
fan
didn't
would
work out for
disagree.
him.
Yeah, no
The
Longhorn fan
same,
would disagree.
and here's maybe a more controversial pick to put in the upper echelon. The same goes for Drew Kelson because if you look at Drew Kelson's numbers, they're not that impressive.
He had the most impactful Rose Bowl on defense of almost any player.
Exactly. Go back and watch the Ohio State.
We don't win those.
Go back and watch the Ohio State game and watch the USC game. Take Drew Kelson off the field and tell me what happens.
Reggie Bush has 200 yards. I almost dropped an F-bomb.
Yeah, boy, you came close.
Yeah.
Boy, you came close.
That was awesome.
And then your starting caliber players, you also had Ryan Palmer, who was a multi-year starter at corner, and then Adam Ulatowski, who was an All-American offensive tackle. Your positive impact players, you had 2 of them, Peter Ullman and Nick Redwine. And then your busts, you had 5 of them, Jeremy Campbell, Bobby Tatum, Greg Dolan, George Walker, Myron Hardy. So your numbers for 2004, Rod: NFL hit rate 31.6%, starting caliber player rate 31.6%, positive impact player 10.5%, your bust rate 26.3%, 5-year record 56-8. Here's an interesting fact about the 04 class: never lost a bowl game. 5-0 in bowl games, 3-0 in BCS games, 5 top 25 finishes, 4 top 10s, 3 top 5s, 1 conference title, 2 division titles, and you contributed to the 04 Rose Bowl, the 05 National Championship, and the Fiesta Bowl in 08.
Yeah, and we basically learned if you're able to put together 4 classes that are arguably the best in a 20-year span, and they're all back-to-back-to-back. We just talked about 02, 03, 04, 05, all those classes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can tell it's
what
in
their
05.
book ended with 02 and 05.
That's the best ones.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what
you
helps.
fill it out with
That
04 and 03.
Because I think the rest of them are great filler, but they're not 02 and 05.
No.
02, 05.
That's what I meant with
But
that.
we're talking
03.
about
you're right.
we're talking about the greatest recruiting class since 1998, basically the greatest recruiting class in the last 2 decades. And we just rattled off 4 contenders, all, as Matt said, all in successive years: 02, 03, 04, and 05.
And then hence how you can get a little complacent and happy and fat upon
Well,
top
even
at
in that,
the end of it.
even before that, though, I guarantee those, and I don't know how those early 2000s look. Well, even the building blocks for Mac aren't horrible.
Yeah, well,
You
no,
know
and
what I mean?
these were the building
Like
block
his-
classes that, like, because then it got to a point that you could offer anybody, and Texas would take them, and Mac was proud that, oh, we only offer a few, and they all sign, and that's, I mean, you couldn't do that at the beginning. You had to build up the 02
You didn't have a
through
class
05.
that decimated you. You didn't have a class that basically disrupted or distorted your trajectory.
Yep.
Which is what Mac had in 09. Like, he basically had a class he couldn't recover from, and that can happen. You literally can get a class you can't recover from.
And then that's what
You know
Jeff,
I mean?
he
It
did
just-
those
it
numbers.
wrecks everything after
and the
that.
thing about Jeff's numbers that he updated me about was after the 09, it's been one upped by a class that
Yes.
came just thereafter.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and break it down. But Rod, to your point about not having classes that decimate you when you're trying to build it, if you look at Mac's first few classes, now your class, you had a 24% NFL hit rate, 6 NFL guys out of 25 qualifiers. All of them were draft picks. You had a 36% bust rate. You had 9 busts in that class. But what saved you is the transition class Matt got from John Malkovich that he put together in a couple of weeks.
98 one?
The 98 class where you had 19 signees, only 18 counted because I couldn't count Adam Dunn because he went and played baseball. Your bust rate was only 11.1%.
Wow, it's amazing.
And that's a foundational class. That's what you need. Volume to come
Now-
in. You might have a few busts, but you're going to get a ton
You
of
start
people
looking
in
at
there.
2000, that was the Roy Sloan and BJ class. Your NFL hit rate in that class, out of 21 qualifying signees in 2000, 28.6% NFL hit rate. Your bust rate was only 19%.
Yep, there you go.
So you're under 20.
And those
At
are
two-
your foundations.
At 2001, your NFL hit rate is 25%. That's Cedric Benson, Derek Johnson, Michael Huff. Your bust rate is only 15%.
You set those foundations and landed big stars, and it just rolled through until you could basically take anybody, and that's by 06, 07, 08 was whenever maybe the evaluation, since you could get whoever you wanted. You weren't grinding to build this entire class and build back this reputation of Texas football.
That's how you survive, a 36% bust rate in that 99 class, which, Rod, I ran down some of the names. I mean, you talked about how talented some of these guys were that you came in with. You ran down Jason Barron, Antonio Moore, Kendrick Turner is the guy that we talked about.
Yeah, man. Kendrick Turner was probably an NFL corner. He just
Adam
knucklehead.
Adam Hall was a starting quarterback at San Diego State. He just wasn't going to beat out Chris Sims.
Yeah.
Funny, I didn't really know anything about Gerald Hansen other than he was
Mighty
fast,
Hansen,
but you
dude,
put
he was
in
fast as hell.
Yeah, you
He
put
just
in
he had a tail basically every time he would like break a route. He would like shuffle his arms. He would I don't know why he would over exaggerate his arms, and so he had a tail that he couldn't get rid of. And literally he could not get rid of it. And I think that was the end of his football career.
Fatal flaw.
You had
just watch his arms.
Tyrone Richardson, who was like Chris Whaley, Henry Melton before those guys came
After
down.
O.J.
Pike.
McClintock.
Yeah.
Ryan Haywood, Shane Hudnall, and Kenny Hyder.
Like, Keenan was a decent running back. He got reps at TCU when he went there. Yeah.
Just wasn't going to beat out Cedric Benson.
Just wasn't going to beat out Cedric. He knew that. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how you survive losing some talented guys is the bust rates around those classes are minimal.
It's got to be the exception and not the rule because I think Mac, based on that 09 class, not only is the bust rate extremely high, but then after that, I think he has another one within the next 2 years of that 09, 2 or 3 years. That's kind of it's really
13.
It's exceptionally high too,
he
right?
Has the numbers.
It's 09,
so
and it's
right
another
when
one that
9
it just wrecks them.
When you're
20
about to purge those people out, you
Yeah.
could have a good 2013 class, and that was when
Yeah.
it all happened over again.
Yep.
Your 2013 class, which is probably the worst class in modern recruiting history for Texas, it is the exact opposite of the 2005 class, where we talked about a 46.7% bust rate and a 46.7% NFL hit rate and a 20% bust rate. In the 13 class, it was opposite. You had a 20% NFL hit rate. Only one of those guys was a draft pick. That was Jeff Swaim in the 7th round.
That should barely even
Kent
count.
Perkins as an undrafted free agent. Tyrone Swoops as a tight end as an undrafted free agent. And your bust rate was 46.7%.
Wow, that's the class.
That's what killed
That's the class
Texas.
that put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah,
For Mac.
09 till
And it
Tom
killed
Herman.
Charlie.
And it killed Charlie.
Yeah.
Like it killed Charlie before Charlie ever even got a chance. That's the class that killed Charlie. Mac basically planted a bomb in Charlie Strong's regime.
With
and
9
it blew
and you
up,
had a
it would blow up
chance.
2-3 years later, but he didn't even have any idea.
And then
Replanted 09. And
when I
13.
went back and again, this is me being, kind of more hardly defining busts and guys moving categories. Your bust rate in 2009, 42.9%.
Oh, so it's not even as high as 2013.
Right. 2013 they've taken the title as the worst. But your bust rate, Rod, for the 2010 class, 37.5%.
Yeah, so you back-to-back classes of really high bust rates. Yeah.
Right after
your bust
5-year span of 5 years.
So you got a 42.9% bust rate in 09, 36, what'd you say,
37.5.
37% bust rate.
Think of how many
2010.
scholarships
There you go.
you're
That's it.
wasting.
Then that's it. That's Mac Brown, Texas
That's
football.
a
in
full
nutshell right there.
22-man roster right there.
Those back-to-back rosters, you being off right there. You never recovered. And then
Right.
2013. So basically,
You made
those
it
are the
even
two
worse.
classes that killed Mac Brown. 2013, he doesn't
Killed
even
Charlie.
see the destruction of that. That's Charlie's destruction.
Right. Yep.
2013's class.
Yep.
And Charlie, who made his own bad decisions, he couldn't recover from
Because
that.
Charlie-
that
Once
was
he showed
historically
up,
high.
he did all right.
Charlie ran off all these guys out of the program. Darius James,
purge.
DeAndre Davis, Rami Hamad, Desmond Harrison, Shavosky Collins, Eric Kuhn, Montrell Meander. Those were all purge guys.
Yep. They were all in 2013 class?
Yeah.
Yep. There was 7 guys he purges from that class there?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
You basically had 2 guys out of that class that helped Tom Herman as 5th-year seniors, Nashawn Hughes and Antoine Davis.
Yeah, if you want to win national titles, maximize your recruiting class. If you want to keep your job, just don't screw up the
Don't
recruiting
have
class.
high bust
Don't have the
rate.
bust rate. Yeah,
That's
don't
gonna
have it
get
where
you
it's
fired.
That get you fired because that bust rate's going to end up with a bad product on the field. Texas obviously needs to be worried about winning national titles, so got to get back to the 05, 02 classes.
But here's where Tom kind of turned it around a little bit with the 2014 class, which was a lot of Charlie guys, but these were Tom Herman's guys for the last couple of years. Your bust rate in 2014, it's only 22.7%.
That's some
It's
development.
not good, but you're improving. Your bust in 2014, Derek Roberson, Duke Catalan, Jermaine Roberts, Blake Wiley, Cam Hampton. And then you had, there's some guys in the positive impact category that could go into the bust category. But Tom Herman ended up squeezing some juice out of guys like Lorenzo Joe, Dorian Leonard, Terrell Cooney, Garrett Gray.
Yeah.
Roderick Bernard was injured. But 2015, do you realize right now,
Yeah,
2015,
the NFL hit rate's high.
now all these guys aren't going to make it, right, in 2015. But as of right now, the 2015 signing class that Charlie Strong put together, it's tracking to have the highest percentage of NFL caliber guys of any recruiting class since 98. Now, all these guys aren't going to make it, right? But right now, it's a 40.7% NFL hit rate. I'm sorry, it would be number 2 behind 2005. My bad.
It'll probably end up around 30, 35 or 30 or low 30s.
But
Still, that's what you want as
Yeah.
the base for any class. And like this is sort of a good thing when you breaking down the amount of busts and we see it sort of visually and see the numbers. You can actually realize like the context that's needed for, because you always hear, well, I got other schools, they got freshmen playing, and we should be able to get production out of our freshmen. It's like, yeah, but a lot of these times our freshmen weren't playing because they were good or the better players. They were playing because they had to, because you had no players. You had these bust 46% or 37%. So when you're filling those holes, it's just because somebody has to get onto the field, not necessarily a good player, and it can sort of give you context to that.
But this kind of shows you where you're tracking, Rod. So of that 2015 class, at least 8 of those guys we know for a fact are going to count towards your NFL hit rate. Connor Williams, Malik Jefferson, Charles Omenihu, Michael Dixon, Deshaun Elliott, Chris Boyd, Holton Hill, Chris Warren.
Yeah.
Those guys are for sure.
Oh,
Those 8 guys are
roster.
locked in to counting towards your NFL hit rate. And we'll see what happens with Devontae Davis, P.J. Locke, and Brecken Hager, and John Burt and Kirk Johnson still have eligibility left. We'll see what categories they end up with. Right now,
They're going to be high, though.
Right now, I've got John Burt tracking to the starting caliber player category and Kirk Johnson in the positive impact category. You did have 8 busts in that class: Ryan Newsom, DeAndre McNeil, Kyle Loxley, Cecil Cherry, Buck Major, Garrett Thomas, Matthew Merrick, Tristan Houston.
You still had a
you
really
still,
high
you have
bust
a
rate.
30. You're right at 30% bust rate, but your NFL, so like Matt talked about on that curve, your NFL hit rate is going to end up being really high too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can get those top end ones, those are the championships caliber teams. Like if you can get that top end of that class to have a few of those, that's what you want to have with that foundation. Like that's why that 15 class is so big, because it's sort of like that foundational one. And if you don't lose momentum, then just hit on some big stars and you should be looking good.
But for Tom, that's why we talked about that 2017 class, that transition class being so huge. Because we talked about Charlie's, though, that 13 class with the purge. I mean, you start looking at 2016, some of those guys that, got themselves dismissed or realized they weren't fit for the new culture. I think Patrick Hudson probably going to end up counting towards the bust rate. It's injuries, just one of those things that just happens. But Eric Fowler was out. Gene DeLance was out. Jordan Elliott was out. Chris Daniels was out. Andrew Fitzgerald was, I think, a medical maybe. I think quit football. Kyle Porter won't count against the bust rate, I don't think, but he's one of those guys based on career trajectory is kind of on the border. Eric Cuffey, Marcel Southall, Reggie Hemphill, DeMarco Boyd's probably going to count against it. Davion Curtis, I think, will count against it. Peyton O'Quinn. So that 2016 class is going to have a really high bust rate, but it also has a chance to have a decent NFL hit rate depending on what happens with guys like Brandon Jones, Jeffrey McCulloch, Colin Johnson, somebody else is in that class.
Also, the context for that
LJ Humphrey,
Malcolm
Roach, Zach Shackelford. So.
Yeah,
some of those
it could end up really good.
And then you have those, incoming classes for a guy. That's a type of situation where some of those busts are by the choice of, say, the coach. That it's like, okay, well, it's going to be better for you to transfer out.
Mutual
it's
parting
different
of
than
the
a normal
ways.
bust, like if you're 5 year or a normal transfer if you're 5 years in and a guy just transfers out. This was a culture change type transfer, and those things just happen in those first classes with a new coach, which is going to make those numbers be higher.
I agree with that.
So, Ryan, but I mean, you look at the 2017 classes, and I know we got to get out of here. This will be the last thing I talk about, but I mean, and we've talked about it before, but in the context of talking about Tom Herman building this program, that transition class is really going to help stabilize things because you start running down the guys. Sam Ellinger probably going to count, probably towards your NFL
franchise quarterback.
Taquan Graham, Gary Johnson, Montrell Estelle still on the roster, Josh Thompson still on the roster. Reese Lato, Marquez Bimage, Kobe Boyce, Derek Kerstetter, Danny Young, Jordan Pouncey, Cade Brewer, Sam Cosme, who, believe it or not, in the 24/7 Sports Composite, there were 154 prospects in the state of Texas better than Sam Cosme. He's probably going to be your next NFL offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Rob Cummins, Jamari Chisholm, Josh Rowland.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys.
You've seen a lot of those guys play.
The only guy right now in that class that's contributing towards the bust rate is Tennille Carter.
Yeah. You got somebody, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, and hell,
And
you
like
even
that
had Tonio playing a little bit. Like I had friends being like, "Ooh, who's this running back?"
Like that 98 class Mac had. Even if the NFL hit rate's not very high, that those categories in the middle, if they're full, which means at the very least you're getting backups, and you're probably getting a lot of starters out of that group. Like, let me go back and run down 98 real quick before we get out of here, because I think this kind of shows you.
It's like the Houston Rockets. Those are your
like
PJ
what
Tuckers,
you
your
need out of a
fillers
transition
across the team.
class, like what ideally you would want out of a transition class. You had Adam Dunn, I didn't count, but in the NFL hit rate, you had 3 guys: Mike Williams, Ahmad Brooks, Marcus Wilkins. Marcus Wilkins had like the strangest.
Yeah, undrafted free agent. special
Not a
teams
starter
guy.
at Texas,
Yeah.
undrafted free agent, and ends up playing
played for like
several
7-8
years in the
years,
league.
You know, guys are like, he went to Texas?
But
It was like,
Rod,
I think Mo Evans is the basketball version of Wilkins.
You talk about guys that were multiple year starters. Some of these guys ended up getting beat out, but these were guys you played with that at the very least, they were multiple year starters, probably got beat out by a better guy, but at least were good roster filler guys in your starting caliber player category. Lee Jackson, Irvis Hill. I threw Bo Trahan in there because he was on every damn special teams. And you can speak to the value of Bo Trahan.
Bo was legit, team captain at times, yeah.
Antoine Kirk Hughes, Tyrone Jones, and Everett Rawls.
Yeah.
And even your positive impact players, guys that maybe they started some games but maybe didn't hit their ceiling or, injuries or whatever. Bo Baker, Jermaine Anderson, Miguel McCade, John Wyndham, Victor Ike, Courtney Garcia, Montrell Flowers.
Yeah. Most of those guys ended up getting
stayed more than
reps at
2
one
years,
point.
gave you something. Courtney Garcia, I didn't realize 1 year he was 2 years was like the leading punt returner.
Yeah. No, he was a good player. No, I remember that. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't realize that class had been that significant, that impactful.
Only two guys I would put in the bus category: Jamal Joyner and Chris Robertson. And even Chris Robertson 1 year had 10 touchdowns.
I want to say he actually did. Chris Robertson played,
but he was out 2 years. He was in the 2 year window, transferred for playing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I agree with that.
But that's what you need out of a transition class. That's what, at the very least, what Tom's going to get out of 98 out of 17, and hell, like you said, Rod, found a franchise quarterback in that class.
Yeah, just keep the bust rate down, man. Seems to be like what you need to do. Nobody knows what. I don't think we can figure out what makes a great class yet, but we know what makes a bad class.
Yeah.
High bust
You
rate.
need some type of production.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Don't just don't mess
don't
up
be
and
wasting
they go away.
scholarships.
Exactly.
Is it kind of like when I should know this because I researched it in college. Is that kind of like when the Larry Flint, Jerry Falwell case where the Supreme Court talked about the definition of pornography? I can't tell you what the definition is, but I know it when I see it.
Yep.
That actually is way before that. It's like in the 60s or something. Yeah.
It's like in the 70s, early 80s.
It's like, it's early.
But it's the same thing. Like
it's the same thing, yeah.
I can't tell you what makes a good recruiting class, but I damn sure can tell you what makes a bad one.
Yeah. A high bust rate. It's a terrible recruiting class.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was jam-packed with information. We will swim through it, sort it out, delve into it throughout the summer, and I've got different things I'm going to do with all that research. So that was just a little taste of what I've been doing the last week or so. Matt, thanks for everything, man.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Rod B., appreciate the time and the knowledge.
Anytime, brother, anytime.
For Matt, for Rod, for Travis, the best damn videographer in the podcast game who's finally awake from his nap over there. For everybody at the Austin Radio Network and the Horn, 1049, 1019, AM 1260, streaming on the Horn app and at hornfm.com, where you can get Rod each and every weekday on the Rodcast from 1 to 3.
Shameless plug.
You can get this podcast on Megaphone, Google Play, Apple Podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, part of the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network. And thanks to Matt, you can get our classic interviews, classic shows, all of our archives on the Longhorn Blitz SoundCloud page.
Yep, just type in Longhorn Blitz.
For the Horn family, for the Horns 24/7 family, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for downloading and listening, and we will catch you again on the next episode.
You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz. You've been listening to Longhorn Blitz with horns247.com. Remember, for the latest Longhorn news 24/7, visit horns247.com.